Hey, what's going on, everybody? So we saw Dune last night. I'm Jeff,
I'm Matt.
and we're gonna give our review. If you've seen, obviously, the title of this, you know our initial reactions to it. But I do want to say, as with any time that I'm critical of something, if you enjoyed something and I didn't, that's a good thing for you because that means that you got to enjoy something that I didn't. So if you like this movie, don't think I'm trying to take anything away from you by the criticisms that we're about to level.
Criticisms. You didn't like it?
No, I
Oh
did not
man.
like it. So yeah, with that in mind, but this might be some food for thought from two Dune fans. So before we get started with the movie, what is your experience with Dune in the universe?
Okay, so my very first experience with Dune, I read it when I was either in my late teens or early 20s. And I was hooked. I loved it. I read every single Dune book that was available at the time, including some of the Brian Herbert stuff. Then I think I watched the mini-series before I watched the 1984 Dune
Sure.
movie.
Yeah.
Loved the miniseries. Actually, I absconded the DVD copies from a library when I was younger because they
Fair
had them,
enough,
and I was
yeah.
like, I don't think anybody else is ever going to check these out. I'm just gonna hold on to them forever.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my experience with it. Very huge, big Dune fan. One of the most, I would say it's probably the most influential piece of science fiction in my childhood. Probably.
Wow. Okay.
Probably maybe equal to Star Trek,
Yeah. Okay.
because like
I can see that.
Star Trek and Dune are about the two sci-fi franchises, if you will, that are kind of like my niche, my area of I don't know, liking to see, I guess.
Sure,
It's my
sure.
stuff, my jam.
So I was raised watching the David Lynch Dune because it was on TV all the time. And I loved it as a kid. I didn't really realize a lot of the criticisms until I read the books. And then I was like, oh, okay. Read a ton of the books. Huge fan. I've read the books many times. Saw the sci-fi miniseries and hated it initially. And then I saw Children of Dune and I loved that. That miniseries is great.
James McAvoy.
Yeah. James McAvoy's first real big role, I think.
Yeah, it was the first thing I ever saw, man.
And then I kind of grew to love, despite its flaws, the miniseries. But I would say that Dune is what I would consider it the most brilliant sci-fi franchise.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very in depth. It's very well thought out,
Sure.
methodical. It's not. It's a huge piece of science fiction.
Yeah, the scale of it is really one of the best parts about it. I guess since we're getting into like this movie, let's start with what we liked about it.
Well, let's go back for so last night, opening night, Jeff and I went to
Right.
went to the theater. I believe it was the first time I've ever seen. It's definitely the first time that I can confirm that I've seen something in IMAX. I
Right.
may have seen something in IMAX before and not remembered it. I can't remember. Oh, I saw this particular movie in IMAX. So went and saw it in IMAX last night. Both being Dune fans, and by the end of it, we both there were a couple points where, well, no, there were trailers that we laughed at, but there were a couple points where we were like groaning to each other in the theater.
Yeah.
I remember looking at my phone at the 1 hour and 45-minute mark going, oh my God, is this still going on?
Yeah, and that's not a good thing to do, especially because, we knew it was going to be only the first half of the first book.
Right. And there are some people who are saying that it's even less than that. But I think that battle where he kills that Fremen, that's about the halfway point. Like that's
It's about the halfway
Yeah,
point,
that's the
but
turning point in the book
Yeah,
for sure. So
yeah.
but
So-
yeah, spoiler alert, that's about where the movie ends. He kills that Fremen dude, and then they're off to Siege Tabar, and that's the end of the movie.
Yep, that's the end of the movie. So, what I liked about the movie, visually, it's stunning.
It's very striking.
Yes.
When you watch it, it's just the production quality is very, very high.
Yes.
But what I'm finding personally in science fiction and possibly all the media that I'm absorbing these days,
Yeah.
production value seems to go up and up at the cost of a good story or
Yes.
a good rest of the production.
Right. And like I had very high hopes for this because I'm a huge Denis Villeneuve fan.
Denis Villeneuve, however you say his name.
However you say his name. I've loved almost every movie of his I've seen, and the ones that I didn't love I thought were great. So I was very excited for this because I want to see Dune on that big epic scale, which they did manage to do in the Lynch version. But I think they did.
It's pretty epic. Sure.
It's pretty epic.
Especially for
pretty epic.
1984.
Yeah. But like, and I'm going to compare these two movies a lot.
Sure.
But it was very visually striking. You didn't really like the sound.
The sound was obnoxious, in my opinion. It was a lot of horns, a lot of.
It's very Denis Villeneuve.
Yeah, very Hans Zimmerman.
Yeah, I fucking on techno acid or some shit. I don't know. It was wild.
It just like it got to a point with the soundtrack for me where I was just like, oh my god, this is gonna start giving me a headache pretty soon. Like there wasn't. We talked last night about this. Is that like it makes a big visual spectacle, but it doesn't. It's
Right.
at the expense of character development and
World building.
right? All of these things, and it seemed like we had these long, drawn out Villeneuve style shots.
Yeah.
And like the only thing that the composers could do was just put loud noises over them to be like, bah,
I think
as
he has
these long shots
I
go
think
on.
he has a hand a lot of times in that kind of aspect, how they score
In the
it and that
composing,
sort-
yeah.
in the composing. Okay, there are two central problems that I've been able to identify, and then there's a lot more other problems as well that why I don't like this movie. The first and foremost one, which really should be simple, is that Timothée Chalamet sucks.
Yeah, he's my number one problem in this movie too. Like
he's not good.
he's not an empathetic Paul. He's not somebody
Nope.
that you care about at all. He's you know what, the way that you described him to me earlier, if you want to tell the viewers the way that you described him, I think that's probably the perfect description.
99% of the time he is sad, morose, mopey, emo boy and has one expression that barely cracks at all, and he just kind of mopes around and mopes and does more moping. He's even moping when he's fighting. He does mopey face when he's like kicking ass.
I think mopey face is the only face except for
one scene which I don't believe is in the book at all. I mean, I might be wrong on that. It's been a minute.
So I seem to remember there was something akin to that where like Paul kind of freaks out and like goes off on Jessica when he realizes that like he's been the fucking he's the end result of this genetic breeding
He's
program.
gonna be the Kwisatz Haderach. Yeah. And he kind of has an existential crisis. But in this one, like, Timothée Chalamet ends up sounding like a whining, petulant, shrieking little kid.
Breaks down in a tent and just starts kicking and flailing.
The way they shoot it is awful. His emoting is awful. I don't know how they didn't reshoot it because it is garbage. It doesn't evoke anything except for... Can somebody slap this fucking kid?
Yeah, so that was one of two scenes in this movie that I personally absolutely fucking hated.
Yeah.
The other scene is you see it in the trailer where he's in like a white still suit and he's fucking like jumping over people and twirling and stabbing people, and then he opens up his visor and it's his face. And it was described as Power Ranger. Is that what you said?
Yeah. It felt like you were watching a fight scene from the Power Rangers.
Yeah, because he's twirling and jumping over people, and it looks ridiculous. And it's a vision. It's a vision that he's having of the future.
Right.
And it's just dumb. And that was the other thing too, is they focus so much on his visions in this movie.
Yes.
Like. You could have alluded to that and saved so much more time for world building, for character development, for so many more things.
Well, we're almost there, but like that one scene, I gotta mention this too. You know how they talk about the superhero trip of like, we're gonna get a superhero landing. We're gonna get a superhero landing. They like land with one knee and their hand down and shit. Like that's how it felt. I'm like, this is what the fuck? Why are you doing like the effective like doing ninja flips over and I just killed a guy. Here's my emo face under my helmet. Like that is fucking superhero landing shit, and it took me totally out of it.
Yeah. And I'd like maybe I see here I am trying to argue the other side, like in my head. Maybe it made sense because they're trying to tell people, hey, look, stay tuned because look, we're gonna have all this cool fighting shit and stuff later on in the series. Because yeah, that takes place. He's having a vision of the future,
Right.
But it could have been done so much better.
Right.
It could have been done so much better. Leave all of that shit out if we're going to see it later on anyway.
Right.
And focus on the fucking story that you've got to tell right now.
So the other big problem, and I think we're in agreement with this, is that this movie shows a lot of things, but by the things that they chose to focus on, you miss out on like 80% of the world of Dune. Like they reference the Spacing Guild once.
Mm-hmm.
You never see them. You never understand that they are part of this plot. You never hear about the Padishah Emperor. Irulan is not in the fucking movie at all.
No. Fate's not in it. So here's another thing. So I would like anybody who's seen this movie who's not familiar with Dune. If you've watched the movie, you saw Thufir. Who's Thufir? Like, why is he important? What does he do?
Do you know who Thufir is? Do you know what a mentat is?
Do you know what a mentat is? Do they say the word mentat one time in the fucking movie?
I don't think they say mentat at all.
No, they don't even say Piter's name.
Yeah, and Piter de Vries is a pretty big fucking character in the book.
And he doesn't have a very big. That's the other thing is that there were so many wasted characters in this.
Yeah.
Stilgar's in 2 scenes.
Yep.
In the first scene that he's in, it was like almost fucking pointless for him to be in it. He's like, oh, I come in here, that's all I have to say to you, and walks out.
The Lynchian Dune doesn't even have him show up at the palace at all. Like, the first time you meet him is when Paul and Jessica are fleeing. Yeah.
Huh.
And he's the one who, like...
is there a version where he does come to the palace? Because
I think that's in the mini-series.
Well, I know it's in the mini-series, but I don't know.
Oh, a version of the Lynchian one? Like the extended edition?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Doesn't matter.
But yeah, like, so... But this really gets down to it is... There's so many characters that get no fucking love. You never hear Piter's name. You never learn anything about him except, hey, isn't that Polka Dot Man from the Suicide
Exactly, and you can't even
Squad?
hardly tell that it's him.
Yeah.
Because he's bald, isn't he? Is he like completely bald?
He's
in
completely
this?
bald.
Yeah.
And then and in the Lynchian Dune, you get to know Piter de Vries.
Yeah. I mean, even in the mini-series, you learn a little bit more about Piter, but like Piter had an obsession with Jessica, and it's not even mentioned in this book at all.
And he's the one that broke. And here's the other one too. If you saw this movie, never read the books or seen the other material, do you know what imperial conditioning is? Probably not, because they don't mention it.
Do you know why Dr. Yui was even important? Like,
right, Dr. Yui is important because he had imperial conditioning, the tattoo mark on his forehead, which meant that he was safe to treat even an emperor, and that he
wouldn't betray anyone.
That he physically
couldn't.
not.
He was not. Yeah, he could. His conditioning did not allow him to betray. But
Piter is the one who breaks it.
Yeah, they find a way around that, and it's not even fucking. That's not even brought up at all.
Now, right now, it probably sounds like we're just whining because like there are things from the book or like the Lynchian movie or the miniseries that aren't in this. Here's the thing. Keep in mind this. This movie is 2.5 hours fucking long.
It's almost 3 hours long.
Almost 3 hours long. And this is only supposed to be half of it. In 2 hours and like 40 minutes, you learn less than you do in an hour and 15 minutes in the Lynch movie. And what is it replaced with?
Just long shots of Zendaya.
Yeah, that's right. That's like, I would say the majority of the shit that you see on screen is either ornithopter flying or him having visions of Zendaya.
And what's weird is that Zendaya's character doesn't actually come into the movie until about the last 15, 20 minutes of the film.
I wouldn't mind him having visions of her.
And yet you see her character more than like some of these other characters that are like you probably see her more than you see Oscar Isaacs.
Yeah, probably. I think Oscar Isaacs, who did a good job in this movie.
He did an all right job. I think that his portrayal as Duke Leto Atreides, which they say his name one time
Yeah,
about
just one.
halfway through the movie. Jessica calls him Leto, and that's the first time that his name is mentioned.
Right.
That's the other thing is that they don't find a good way to introduce any of these characters.
Right. You don't know anything about them. And like, I think you're right. I think, and I should probably go and actually check this out because I'm kind of curious and like do the calculations that you see Zendaya
More than
Oscar Isaac.
That would be really bad if it is.
Right.
If that's the way
I'm
that
cool.
happens.
I'm fine. Like it is a big part of the book that he is
has
having
visions of
of
Chani,
her. Right. But it's like every 20 minutes he's having a vision of Zendaya. And it's like, dude, fucking why? Why are you doing this? And the other thing that's weird is the editing in this movie is really fucking bizarre. Like there's a certain point, and I don't remember exactly when it was because I was like having trouble. It's like 2 hours and 10 minutes in where like there is something serious happening, and you get 45 seconds of it, and then it cuts to like something else happening for like 45 minutes, and they are not really related, but it's like fast paced, like switching between scenes, and I'm like, what the fuck are they doing? This feels gross.
Yeah, I mean, if and I don't know, I don't remember which point you're talking about, but I mean, like if two things are happening at the same point in the film, like that's understandable. Or if two things are related and they do that in a film, that's understandable. But when they just cut between two scenes that don't like have anything to do with each other, that's disjarring.
So my main criticism is Timothée Chalamet is shit. Everybody else could have been shit, but as long as you have a good Paul, you could probably make a pretty decent one. Oh yeah, Jessica was pretty bad too. But
yeah, Jessica cried a lot in this movie.
Yeah,
which is weird. Like so like in my reading through Dune and seeing all of the stuff, like in my mind, Jessica's a very strong woman, and while she definitely has the Duke's back, like she's still can hold her own. In this,
she's a strong woman.
Yeah. In this, and the actress that played Jessica is a good actress. Like if you've ever seen Dr. No, she's fantastic.
Rebecca Ferguson she's a very wonderful actress.
She's really good, but in this movie, I was just like, what's going on? Why? I don't get it.
So yeah, I feel like we just missed out a lot, and that's my main criticism is that
who was your favorite character in this movie?
Oh, well, so I made a joke when we were going into it that somebody had said Jason Momoa was like a highlight of the movie, and we were like, yeah, ha, like that's
right,
gonna happen.
Jason Momoa.
But he kind of is. He kind of is.
Yeah.
I really liked the actress who played Liette Kynes. I thought she did really good in it.
She did really good.
Yeah.
So like that was one thing that people were flipping out about online. Obviously, like the there's that section of the internet that anytime that you change something and gender bend something or something like that, they're gonna they're trying to change things on us.
Didn't fucking matter. It
first off, it didn't affect the story at all, any way, shape, or form. And secondly, like she was a good actress. She did a really good job. But yeah, I would say that out of all of the characters, and if I was not a Dune fan going into this, watching this movie, I wouldn't have known who 90% of the people on screen were. I wouldn't have known who their names were, anything like that. Gurney, God, what is this? Josh Brolin. He does an okay job. It's not standout. It's not. Like,
you don't really learn anything.
It's definitely not his best performance.
Except it's cranky Josh Brolin.
Yeah, I would say that Jason Momoa does the best in this movie out of all the main characters.
Yeah, and that's
weird.
Odd. It's odd, but it's true. And I think a lot of it is maybe he just wasn't. Everybody else wasn't really given the opportunity to. And that's really where I'm most pissed about this movie is that it chose style and Zendaya over Dune.
Yeah.
Over the beautiful tapestry that is this beautiful universe with all sorts of shit. We don't learn anything about the politics, the real politics. They give surface level so you can understand, you can get back to Paul so you can have more visions of Zendaya. Like they don't talk about like the real implications of like the Emperor, the Spacing Guild, like the balance of power. All you learn is like Harkonnen's made a lot of money, and also for some reason the Atreides. But why the Atreides are so dangerous to the Emperor? Why?
Right.
Like, actually,
right.
Why?
Not only that, but like they mention something about the emperor being jealous, but they don't go into the whole like the duke has been gaining popularity through the great houses, and that's why the emperor is jealous of him. The Sardaukar,
Right.
they go to the Sardaukar planet, and they make like Piter makes the like tells the commander of the Sardaukar that he needs 3 legions to go to Dune, and that they're not supposed to be seen. They're not supposed to know that it's Sardaukar.
Right.
And then they go to they go to Dune, they go to the attack, and they're wearing their Sardaukar outfits and like doing their Sardaukar charges and everything. That's not how the book goes. The Sardaukar are dressed like Harkonnen in the book.
Yep.
You do not know that they're Sardaukar until like they rip off their clothes and like see one of their tattoos or brandings or something like that.
Yeah.
Like that is. There were a couple different moments like that for me in this movie where it's just like, we're gonna blatantly change the book and not say anything about it and not give a shit.
Right. And the thing is too, like the main arguments I've always heard against the Lynchian movie is that one, they divert from the book in very, very blatant ways, which is bothersome, but I've been able to kind of forgive it over the years, and that it tells, it doesn't show enough, but you have to.
Right.
You have to. But yeah, I mean, there's just no excuse for why we didn't get a chance to learn more about some of these characters, understand more about the world, understand more about like the great houses, the Landsrod, the interesting politics.
Mm-hmm.
And there was probably a good like 50 minutes of this movie that if you weren't going to add those in, you
could have
cut
just
50 minutes out
taken
of this
a whole lot of it out. Yeah.
Yeah, just remove it. Just remove it because it serves absolutely no fucking purpose. It is long, it is boring, and is hollow as fuck. I hate this movie.
It's unfortunate. Like I was super excited. The trailers looked, pretty good for the most part. Timothy Chalamet didn't like. There were a few scenes where I was like, I don't know, is he going to be an okay Paul? And spoiler alert, he's not.
He's not.
But disappointment is mostly what I felt leaving the theater. Like I said, I started looking at my phone at 1 hour and 40 minutes. I looked at it again at about like the 2 hour and 20 minute mark. Like I was bored. And that's not how I should have been feeling going into this movie. Like I should not have even felt like it was long enough to look at my phone and see what time it was.
Right.
It should have been like 3 hours and we're done and we're like, oh my God, holy crap, that went by. It was fantastic. But that's not what it was. It was long, it was drawn out, and it was, I mean, it wasn't pointless, but ultimately, I don't think that, like, I would be very surprised if they put a sequel into production.
I will see. I mean, it was a beautiful, boring mess. One thing, though, that I find really fascinating, at the end of the movie, you get to see somebody riding a sandworm.
Yeah.
And it looks like shit. I don't know if you paid very close attention to it,
I
because
didn't,
at that point...
I didn't pay that close. Like, I saw it happening, and I was like, oh, look, they're riding a sandworm. Is this fucking over yet? Like, is it time to leave? I was just waiting for the credits to roll.
Go watch the Lynch Dune and see the scenes where they're riding a fucking sandworm,
Looks
and then
about the same.
compare it to how much this, like, hundreds of millions of dollar production fucking movie...
You know what? One of my criticisms that I just remembered was there were probably at least 5 or 6 times in this movie last night where I was like, holy shit, scene for scene, this is exactly the same as the miniseries.
Oh, yeah.
Like the scenes are set up exactly like Denis Villeneuve had to have watched the miniseries for inspiration because, like I said, there are scene for scenes where like the background, everything is set up exactly the same. And I understand source material, but that being said, when you're creating a film production, like it doesn't have to look exactly like the sci-fi miniseries from 21 years ago.
Yeah, that is kind of weird. I think we're pretty much in agreement that, well, you've only seen the Lynchian Dune once, but
I may have seen it a couple times, but like I said, I wasn't a huge fan of it.
It's very flawed, but it will give you the universe. If you watch the extended edition, it's like 4 hours. Watch that one if you're going to watch it. But it's worth it, and it's not boring. That's the thing. This is boring. That one ain't boring. It's interesting and it's cool, but it has a lot of deep flaws. But it does love the material, no matter how much it changes some stuff.
And you know, I think that Villeneuve, like I think that he probably to a degree like loved the source material, maybe. But that being said, shit.
I don't think that he loved the world building in it enough to include it, or maybe he had to make the creative decision that more people want to see an action movie with a potential like romance in the future.
Some of the criticisms of this of his movie were that it stayed too true to the source material and didn't like diverge enough.
Nah.
But I don't believe that. Like he diverged in some areas, and then some areas his dialogue was literally to a T from the book. And I think that that's the criticism, is that like the dialogue is to a T from the book in certain areas. But like I said, other areas he very clearly diverged from the book. When Stilgar comes in and spits on the table or whatever, Duncan in the movie is the one who says, thank you for the gift of your body's water.
Yeah.
In the book, at least in the sci-fi miniseries, I haven't read the book in long enough to but I'm like 90% sure that in the book, Paul is actually the one who realizes that Stilgar, because everybody else is offended.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's how it is. But like that was something that bugged me too. If I'm wrong, if it is Duncan in the book, then fuck me. But
yeah. But I think the ultimate one is that if you want to see a very faithful adaptation that is very rough looking and doesn't have the best acting, but is probably the most faithful, the miniseries is the one to go to.
Right. Yeah, no, it's weird that I came out of this movie going, I think that the sci-fi miniseries is still probably the best out of all of them.
I still love the Lynchian Dune.
That's fine.
It's the production style,
sure.
And it's Kyle MacLachlan. Kyle MacLachlan does so fucking good as Paul.
Yeah.
So good. And if you haven't seen it yet, I challenge you, like, forgive its flaws, but go and see it and see somebody actually do a really good Paul. The dude who did in the miniseries, he was fine.
Yeah, he
way
was
better than Timothy Chalamet. That's for fucking sure.
No, he was better than Timothy. I think the funny thing about it is that they got an actor who he was an adult because but in the very beginning of the miniseries and like the first very part of it, he's supposed to play like a teenager and he's clearly like in his 30s.
Yeah,
that's pretty funny, but
Yeah.
For all its flaws, it does the story well.
Yeah.
So
anyway,
I don't think that this one did. So unfortunately, because we were both really hyped for it.
Yeah, it just made the loss that much more crushing. Anyway, Dune 2021 sucked.
Yeah, don't go see it. Go watch the mini series or the Lynch film.
Yeah. Okay, bye.
See ya.